The night air in Riverton, Virginia was still. Not silent, just still. A flickering street lamp buzzed over a cracked diner sign. Beacon's Grill, since 1953. Inside, the jukebox whispered old country tunes. Forks clinked. Coffee steamed. The kind of place where time forgets to move. And then, General Elijah Granger stepped in. Dress blues sharp. Silver hair combed back. 3 stars glinting faintly under yellow neon. He didn't command the room. He didn't have to. He walked like a man who'd led soldiers through sandstorms, sat in rooms presidents feared, and buried friends without breaking. But here, he just wanted a cheeseburger. 6 hours down I-95, heading to a pre-dawn briefing at Fort Merrick, he had stopped for one thing: silence. And maybe fries. He slid into a booth, nodded politely to the waitress, Dana Whitmore, mid-20s, sharp eyes behind tired mascara, and pulled out his phone. A few messages from Monica, his wife, a flagged email from the Pentagon. He didn't look like a man about to be cuffed in front of strangers. But outside, under the cold sodium glow of the parking lot, 2 officers leaned against their cruiser. Officer Brent Kincaid, thick-jawed, mid-50s, eyes like sour bourbon. Officer Mason Tripp, younger, buzz-cut, arms folded too tightly. They saw the rental sedan. They saw the uniform. They saw Elijah Granger step out. And saw only one thing. A black man pretending to be in power. "He's got medals," Tripp muttered. Kincaid spat near his boots. "Too shiny for this town. Looks like he bought that online." They didn't check the plates, didn't call it in. Didn't wonder why a general would stop in a place like this. They just watched. And when Elijah paid his bill, left a $20 tip and walked out with a quiet nod, they moved. "Hey, you!" The voice sliced through the cold. Elijah paused, not afraid, just alert. He turned, slow, deliberate, and met Kincaid's flashlight straight in the eyes. "Evening, officers," he said, hands where they could see. Voice calm, measured. Kincaid stepped closer. His breath reeked of old coffee and power trips. "That's a hell of a costume, General." He eyed the stars on Elijah's chest like they were stolen. "Mind telling me where you got it?" Elijah Granger straightened his spine. And with a voice carved from war zones and war rooms, he answered, "It's not a costume. I'm Lieutenant General Elijah Granger, U.S. Army." And just like that, the stillness shattered. Inside Beacon's Grill, the night had moved slow. The kind of slow that made time drip. Like black coffee from a cracked pot. Dana Whitmore had seen it all behind that counter. Late shift truckers, lonely widowers, teenagers with broken curfews. But she hadn't seen many men like General Elijah Granger. He didn't speak loudly, didn't flash his stars or correct anyone's tone. He just sat there, calm, grounded, precise. He'd ordered a cheeseburger, black coffee, and nothing else. A man who knew what he wanted, and didn't need to explain it. When Dana asked, "You stationed nearby?" he simply smiled and said, "Just passing through." She liked that, the way he said it, like it meant something deeper, like he'd passed through things most people couldn't imagine. Meanwhile, outside, Officer Brent Kincaid was chewing on the inside of his cheek. Something about Elijah set him off. Not the medals, not the rental. It was the calm, the kind of calm Kincaid couldn't intimidate. Standing next to him, Officer Mason Tripp kept glancing toward the diner windows. He could see Elijah through the glass, sitting upright, neat, alone. Didn't look like a threat. Didn't look like a fraud either. But Kincaid didn't like looks. He liked control. And men like Elijah Granger, with their polished posture and unreadable eyes, they reminded him of something he never had. Inside, Elijah finished his meal, slid the plate forward, left a tip that would cover 2 meals. He buttoned his jacket, adjusted the lapel with care, and nodded once at Dana, who smiled. "Safe travels, sir," she said. He paused at the door, tilted his head. "Thank you for the kindness." And with that, he stepped out into the night. The second his boots hit the pavement, Kincaid moved, flashlight in hand, swagger in step. "Hey, you! Freeze!" Elijah turned. Slow. Like he'd heard those words before in places far worse than this. Hands still, posture perfect. The flashlight hit him square in the eyes. Tripp stepped to the side, circling like a dog taught by an older one to bark before it bites. Elijah spoke first, calm even. "Evening, officers. Is there a problem?" Kincaid sneered. "Yeah. The problem is you look like a damn storybook." He pointed at the stars on Elijah's chest. "You don't look like any general I've ever met." Elijah didn't blink, just let the words hang, and then replied, soft but sharp, "Maybe that's because you've never met one who looked like me." For a split second, no one moved. The stars on General Elijah Granger's chest caught the glow of the street lamp, flickering like the last light of logic. But Officer Brent Kincaid was already too far gone for logic. He stepped closer, too close, his breath sour with ego. "That's a nice story," he muttered. "Too bad it doesn't check out." From the side, Officer Mason Tripp paced like a hyena, arms crossed tighter than before. He wasn't sure this felt right, but he wasn't about to challenge Kincaid. Not yet. "You got ID?" Tripp asked. Elijah nodded. Slow, deliberate. "Left pocket. Wallet. I'm reaching now." He moved like a man defusing a bomb. 2 fingers. Smooth motion. He held it out. Open. Name, rank, photo, barcodes. U.S. Army. Legit. Tripp took it. Brows furrowed. Then shrugged. Could be fake. Kincaid chuckled, mean and low. "You don't look like a general. You look like a scam in uniform." The words hit harder than a shove. Not because they were new, but because they were tired. Because Elijah had heard them. In different forms. His whole life. "You ever meet a black general, officer?" he asked, voice cool as steel. Kincaid didn't answer, didn't need to. His eyes already had. Across the street, the late-night glow of the gas station lit up a small gathering. A couple in hoodies, a mechanic wiping his hands on a rag, and Dana Whitmore standing at the diner door, phone in her hand. She wasn't filming yet, but her thumb was hovering. Back near the cruiser, Kincaid stepped forward. "Hands on the car!" he barked. Elijah didn't move. "I've complied, presented ID. I'm not resisting. You have no grounds." Tripp shifted uncomfortably. Kincaid, but it was too late. Kincaid grabbed Elijah's wrist, twisted hard, and slammed him face first onto the hood of his own rental. The metal screamed. The crowd gasped. Cuffs clicked, too tight, too fast. Elijah didn't yell, didn't thrash, just exhaled, slow and steady, as cold steel bit into his skin. "You're under arrest," Kincaid hissed, impersonating an officer, resisting. He shoved him toward the cruiser. But just before Elijah was thrown into the back seat, he turned his head slightly, eyes locked on Tripp, then Kincaid. "My phone's in my right pocket," he said quietly. "There's a number labeled Pentagon. Call it. Now." Kincaid scoffed. Save the bluff for court. But behind him, the phones had started recording, and the clock had already started ticking. The inside of the Riverton police station felt like a storage closet dressed up in authority. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, the walls yellowed with time. The chair, metal, cold and bolted to the floor. General Elijah Granger sat cuffed to the table, back straight, eyes calm, but under the surface, steel. Across the room, Officer Brent Kincaid and Officer Mason Tripp leaned near the door, sipping weak coffee, chuckling like boys who thought they'd caught a prize fish. "He's got the posture," Tripp muttered. "I'll give him that." Kincaid smirked. "I've seen actors pull off better." The door creaked. Chief Walter Huxley walked in. Older, round in the waist, exhaustion hanging from his shoulders. He held a wallet in one hand, the ID open in the other. "This says you're a 3-star general," the chief said flatly. "That true?" Elijah looked up. "Lieutenant General Elijah Granger, Joint Special Operations Command." "It's true." Huxley frowned, unsure. He turned to Kincaid. "He was mouthy, Chief," Kincaid said. "Didn't comply." Elijah's voice cut in, low, measured. "I offered my ID. I told them who to call. I stood still. They chose to act." Huxley rubbed the bridge of his nose, looked back at the ID, then at the stars on Elijah's chest. "Fine," he muttered. "One call. If this is fake, you're not walking out." He reached for the desk phone. Tangled cord. Buttons faded. Elijah didn't move. He simply said, "Put it on speaker." Kincaid snorted. "This should be good." Huxley dialed, slow, cautious, each beep like a countdown. "Beep, beep, beep." The line clicked. "Office of the Deputy Secretary," a crisp voice answered. Elijah's tone didn't change. "This is General Granger. I need to speak to Secretary Lorraine Maddox, Priority 1. A pause. "Yes, sir. One moment." Kincaid rolled his eyes, but said nothing. Then the speaker crackled, and a voice came through like a thunderclap in a chapel. "Elijah, where the hell are you?" "Secretary Lorraine Maddox." Sharp, unyielding, every syllable a command. Elijah answered without hesitation. "Riverton, Virginia. Local PD. Detained. Cuffed. No probable cause." Silence. Then, "Chief, who am I speaking to?" Huxley stammered. Walter Huxley, ma'am." Her tone shifted into something surgical. "Chief Huxley, you're holding a decorated general. A man who's led operations presidents haven't read about. Release him, now, or I'll have MPs in your parking lot before midnight. And the governor on line 2. The room froze. Tripp dropped his coffee. Kincaid paled. Huxley didn't argue. He waved frantically. "Uncuff him! Now!" Keys fumbled. Metal clanked. The cuffs hit the table like a gavel. And General Elijah Granger stood, tall, unshaken, undefeated. The cuffs hit the metal table like thunder in a quiet church. Officer Mason Tripp flinched. Officer Brent Kincaid stood frozen, lips parted, face drained of blood. And Chief Walter Huxley? He just stared at the floor, where his authority had shattered. Across the room, General Elijah Granger rubbed his wrists, slowly, deliberately, then looked up. His voice was soft, but deadly precise. "A mistake is forgetting a name. What you did was a choice." No one answered. No one dared. Elijah retrieved his wallet, straightened his jacket, and walked to the center of the room. Turned and faced all 3 men. "You didn't fail because I'm a general," he said. "You failed because you never stopped to ask if I could be." Kincaid clenched his jaw, but didn't speak. His power was gone, drained in real time, as the speakerphone still echoed faintly behind them. At the door, Tripp leaned against the wall. Eyes on the floor, the weight of regret setting in fast. But the reckoning wasn't done. It had just begun, because outside that room, the video was already spreading. Dana Whitmore had posted it. No caption, no hashtags, just raw footage. A man in uniform, face down on a cruiser. A voice, calm in crisis. A name, Elijah Granger, spoken with strength. By morning, it had crossed TikTok, X, Instagram, and news feeds in 4 time zones. By noon, it was on CNN. By evening, Fox, MSNBC, and everything in between. The nation didn't care if you leaned red or blue. It only saw one thing: a black general arrested for existing. Inside the Pentagon, the ripple hit hard. Secretary Lorraine Maddox demanded a formal inquiry. The Department of Defense launched a sweeping audit. Not just of Riverton, but every local police department within 50 miles of a military installation. Complaints began surfacing. Not new ones, old ones, buried ones. Black service members, veterans, reservists, stopped, questioned, doubted, again and again. And Elijah? He didn't seek a podium. He didn't post. But he also didn't disappear. At Fort Merrick, he arrived in uniform, head held high, and walked into the secure briefing like nothing had happened. But people looked at him differently now, with respect and something else, shame. Later that day, a young lieutenant, black, maybe 24, approached him near the motor pool. She hesitated, then asked, "Sir, how do you keep going after that?" Elijah looked at her and said, "You don't walk for them. You walk for the next one behind you." By sunrise, Riverton was on every screen, not for its diner, not for its charm, but for the moment when General Elijah Granger said, "Call the Pentagon, or regret it." The video, barely 2 minutes long, ignited like dry brush in July. Millions watched Officer Brent Kincaid slam a decorated general against a cruiser, watched Officer Mason Tripp hesitate, then comply, watched Elijah remain still, but not silent. Hashtags surged. General Granger. He wore the stars, justice in uniform. By noon, Beacon's Grill wasn't serving pancakes. It was packed with reporters. Dana Whitmore stood behind the counter, voice steady, phone in hand. "I told them," she said on a live stream. "I told Officer Kincaid he was wrong." Her words echoed far beyond Riverton. Across the country, Black veterans began sharing their own stories of being questioned, dismissed, profiled, in uniform. Old news clips resurfaced. Unfiled complaints got reopened. Numbers started appearing on screens. Percentage of black officers in the military. Percentage of black Americans stopped in towns like this. The math didn't lie, and neither did the footage. Secretary Lorraine Maddox held a press conference the next day. No politics, no spin, just truth. "We are investigating," she said. "And we're no longer asking for cooperation. We're demanding it." The Department of Justice joined in. The governor of Virginia, under national pressure, ordered a full audit of Riverton PD. Chief Walter Huxley tried to get ahead of it. He failed. Because the damage wasn't just procedural, it was personal. The body cam footage leaked. Not edited, not narrated. Just Kincaid saying, "You don't look like a general." Then laughing. Then the slam. Then the cuffs. Silence followed. The kind of silence that feels like shame in surround sound. Kincaid was suspended within 24 hours. Tripp transferred. Pending review. Their past cases reopened. Their complaints re-examined. And their names trending. But Elijah Granger? He stayed out of the camera's glow. No press tour, no speech. He just kept doing what he'd always done. Leading quietly. Mentoring deeply. Reminding those around him that justice wasn't volume. It was posture. It was patience. And sometimes, it was the sound of steel cuffs hitting a table right before everything changed. The fallout came fast, but it didn't scream. It crept, like guilt in a quiet room. Officer Brent Kincaid resigned before the investigation could finish. No statement, no apology. Just a signed form and a box of his things. His neighbors stopped waving. His old army buddies stopped calling. And his silence, once a tool of power, became his punishment. Officer Mason Tripp lasted longer. They moved him to a desk, public relations. But when old social media posts surfaced, rants, slurs, jokes that weren't, he disappeared too. Transferred out of Riverton. maybe out of law enforcement for good. Chief Walter Huxley held a press conference he didn't want. He stood beneath the town seal, flanked by 2 new officers in crisp uniforms. "I failed General Granger," he said. "I failed this department." The apology came late, but not unheard, because outside, the town had changed. Protest signs still lined the fences. "See us, don't cuff us. Power wears all colors." At the diner, Dana Whitmore became a voice the town hadn't expected, but now needed. She spoke at council meetings, shared what she saw, refused to let it fade. One evening, Elijah Granger watched her live stream from his desk at Fort Merrick. She was standing in front of a classroom, talking to kids, telling them about courage, about listening, about a man who didn't yell, didn't fight, but still won. He smiled, not out of pride, but hope. Across the base, soldiers walked a little straighter when they passed him, not out of fear, out of knowing he didn't just carry stars on his shoulders. He carried every one of them when it mattered. He didn't want the attention, didn't ask for it. But Elijah Granger understood something deeper. Sometimes the loudest victories come from the men who never raised their voice. Weeks passed, but the echo remained. Riverton didn't forget, not this time. The streets that once turned a blind eye now bore murals. Faces, names. One of them, General Elijah Granger, painted in full uniform, eyes steady, stars shining under a quote. "Respect doesn't ask what you see, it demands how you look." At the church hall, they held a town forum, packed wall to wall. Voices that once whispered, now spoke. Some shaking, some clear. Old stories surfaced. People who'd never been believed, finally heard. At the edge of the crowd, Dana Whitmore stood beside her mother, holding her phone. Streaming the moment to thousands, a new police chief from Philadelphia had taken over. Tough, measured, no room for old rules wrapped in polite smiles. She rebuilt the training program from scratch. Bias intervention, cultural intelligence, accountability boards run by civilians. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. And far from the camera, at Fort Merrick, Elijah sat in a quiet office. He didn't watch every video, didn't track every headline. He had soldiers to lead and stories to hear. One afternoon, a young black captain entered his office. Nervous, back straight, uniform flawless. "Sir," she said, voice tight, "they'll doubt me. I know they will." Elijah nodded slowly. "They will," he replied. "But when they do, don't shrink. Stand tall and let them see what they've never dared to imagine." He stood, walked her to the door. Before she left, she turned. "You still think it was worth it?" she asked. Elijah paused, then smiled. "Only every time someone like you walks in here and refuses to disappear." That night, his wife Monica sat beside him, phone in hand. On screen, a clip played again, grainy but powerful. Elijah, standing in cuffs, saying just one sentence, "My name is General Elijah Granger, U.S. Army." Monica looked at him. "They finally see you." Elijah shook his head, slow, quiet. "They saw the stars," he said. "But now, maybe they'll start seeing the people who wear them. And maybe the real question is, have you ever been judged before you even said your name? If so, how did you respond? Did you stay quiet? Did you stand tall? Or did you make the world stop long enough to finally listen? Tell us in the comments. Because sometimes, the most powerful voice is the one that never had to raise itself to be heard. True power doesn't come from how loud you speak, but how deeply you're heard. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect or reminded you of someone you know, leave a comment, share your story, and don't forget to like, subscribe to Kayi, and hit the notification bell. Because the world doesn't just need heroes. It needs witnesses and stories that remind us why dignity is never optional. See you in the next video.